Corsica, an island in the Mediterranean, between France and Italy. Mountainous, wild, proud. A land that has never truly belonged to anyone else, that has always known its own law, its own honor, its own pride. In 1768, the Republic of Genoa sells Corsica to France. 1 year later, on the 15th of August 1769, a child is born on this island in the city of Ajaccio. Napoleon Bonaparte. He's not French, not by birth, not by heritage. His family is Corsican with Italian roots. His father, Carlo, is a lawyer and minor nobleman. His mother, Letizia, a strong woman who raises 8 children and pampers none of them. Napoleon is the second child, small, dark-eyed, with eyes that see everything, that categorize everything, that never stop calculating the world. Tonight we follow his life from the mountains of Corsica, over the battlefields of Europe, over the throne of France, to the lonely island in the Atlantic, where he dies, alone with his greatness. Slowly, quietly, from the very beginning. Close your eyes if you wish. Napoleon is waiting. (1779). Napoleon is 9 years old. His father, Carlo, has arranged something important. A scholarship to a French military school in the town of Brienne-le-Château in the northeast of France. Napoleon leaves Corsica for the first time. He does not speak French well. His accent is heavy. His name sounds foreign. The other boys notice. He is small. He is poor. He is different. The boys mock him. They call him the foreigner, the outsider, the island boy who does not belong. Napoleon does not fight back with his fists. He fights back with his mind. He studies more than the others, harder than the others, longer than the others. Mathematics, geography, history, the movement of armies, the logic of war. These things make sense to him in a world that does not always make sense. Numbers do not mock him. Maps do not call him a foreigner. Strategy does not care where you were born. He spends 5 years at Brienne, 5 cold winters, 5 lonely years. But he learns something in that loneliness. He learns that a man who is underestimated has a quiet advantage. No one is watching closely. No one expects anything. And so he prepares quietly, carefully, without anyone noticing. In 1784, at the age of 15, he is accepted to the École Militaire in Paris, the most prestigious military academy in all of France. Paris. He has never seen anything like it. The wide streets, the grand buildings, the noise, the wealth, the inequality. He sees the rich and he sees the poor, and he remembers which side he comes from. At the École Militaire, He studies artillery, the science of cannons, of range and angle, of force and timing. He is brilliant at it. A course that takes others 2 years, he completes in 1. His examiner notes that this young man, from the island of Corsica, could go very far, if the circumstances were right. The circumstances were about to become very right indeed. In 1785, Napoleon Bonaparte graduates as a second lieutenant in the French artillery. He is 16 years old. He writes to his mother. He tells her he is ready. He does not yet know what he is ready for. But the world is about to change, and Napoleon will change with it. Rest now. The story continues tomorrow.
(1789). France is breaking. For decades, the people of France have carried a weight that was not theirs to carry. Heavy taxes, empty bread shelves, a king who does not see them, a court that does not hear them. And then, in the summer of 1789, something shifts. The Bastille falls, a prison, a symbol, a wall between the old world and whatever comes next. The revolution begins. Napoleon is 20 years old, a young lieutenant stationed in various garrisons across France, watching, reading, thinking. He is not yet important. He is not yet known, but he is paying attention to everything. He reads the revolutionary pamphlets, he studies the speeches. He watches how power moves from one hand to another. The old order is dissolving. The aristocracy is fleeing. The church is losing its grip. The king is losing his head. Literally. In January 1793, King Louis XVI is executed by guillotine in the Place de la Révolution in Paris. France is now a republic, and a republic at war with Austria, with Prussia, with Britain, with Spain. Enemies on every border and enemies within. Napoleon watches all of this and understands something that others do not yet see. In chaos, there is opportunity. For those who are prepared, for those who are patient, for those who know which moment to step forward. His moment comes sooner than expected. 1793. The city of Toulon in the south of France, a port city, an important port city. Royalist rebels have handed the city to the British Navy. British ships sit in the harbor. British cannons point at the French shore. The French army is trying to take the city back and failing. Napoleon arrives as a junior artillery officer. He looks at the harbor, he looks at the hills, he looks at where the cannons are placed, and he sees immediately what is wrong. He writes a report, he draws a map, he proposes a new plan. Take that hill, place the artillery there, force the British ships out of range. The city will fall on its own. The commanders listen reluctantly. He is young, he is unknown, but the plan makes sense. They follow it, and it works. Toulon falls to the French in December 1793. Napoleon is 24 years old, and for the first time people know his name. He is promoted to Brigadier General, the youngest general in the French army. He lies down that night in a simple tent on the hills above Toulon, the harbor below him, the sea beyond. He does not celebrate. He simply thinks about what comes next. There is always something that comes next. Sleep now. The story is just beginning.
After Toulon, Napoleon's name begins to travel. Quietly at first, through military circles, through the corridors of the new republic. This young general from Corsica, who sees things others miss, who moves faster than expected, who does not panic when others panic. But fame in a revolution is a dangerous thing. In 1794, the man who led the terror, Maximilien Robespierre, is himself arrested and executed. Napoleon had connections to Robespierre's brother, and so for a few weeks he too is arrested, suspected, watched. He waits calmly. He has learned that storms pass if you do not make them worse. He is released. No charges, no punishment. The storm passes. 1795, Paris. Another crisis. Royalist mobs are marching on the government, thousands of them armed, angry, moving through the streets toward the Tuileries. The government panics. They need someone who will act, who will not hesitate. They call Napoleon. He arrives, he looks at the streets, he looks at the numbers. He does not reach for a sword, he reaches for artillery. Cannons loaded with grape shot placed at the narrow streets leading to the palace. The mob advances, Napoleon gives the order. The cannons fire. The crowd scatters, the uprising is over in less than an hour. Later this moment will be called a whiff of grape shot, the moment a young general saved the French government with cold calculation and steady hands. He is promoted again, given command of the army of Italy. He's 26 years old. Before he leaves for Italy, something else happens, something unexpected, something that softens him in ways war never could. He meets a woman. Her name is Joséphine, a widow, elegant, older than him, with 2 children, with a past, with a way of looking at him, as if she already knows how the story ends. Napoleon falls completely. He writes her letters every day, long letters, desperate letters, full of longing and grand declarations. He marches to Italy with her name in every letter home. Italy. He arrives to find a tired army, underfed, under-equipped, low in spirit. He stands before them and speaks. He tells them what lies ahead. Fertile plains, rich cities, glory. He does not promise them safety. He promises them something better. Purpose. The army follows him. And in the months ahead, Napoleon will do something that shocks all of Europe. But that is a story for tomorrow. Rest now. You have earned it.
1796. Northern Italy. The Alps to the north, the Mediterranean to the south, and between them, a chain of enemy armies. Austrian, Piedmontese waiting, confident, certain that this young French general is no real threat. They are wrong. Napoleon moves fast, faster than anyone expects, faster than supply lines, faster than communication, faster than fear. He divides his army. He strikes at the gap between the Austrian forces and the Piedmontese forces. He does not fight both at once. He fights one, then the other, then the next. Montanut, Millesimo, Dego, Mondovi. 4 battles, 11 days, 4 victories. The Piedmontese ask for peace. Napoleon grants it, quickly. He has no time to celebrate. He is already moving east. The Austrian army retreats across the Po River. They believe the river will slow him down, that he will wait for boats, for bridges, for permission. Napoleon does not wait. He finds a shallow crossing. He moves his army across under fire, and he is on the other side before the Austrians have finished retreating. The campaign continues. Lodi, a bridge over the Adda River. Austrian artillery at the other end, waiting. Napoleon rides to the front. He watches. He calculates. Then he orders a charge across the bridge, direct under fire into the cannons. His soldiers will later call him the Little Corporal, not as an insult, as an expression of something closer to love. He was there, at the bridge, with them, not behind, not watching, there. They take the bridge. They push through. The Austrians fall back. Milan opens its gates. Napoleon enters the city, not as a conqueror, but as something more complicated, a liberator, a disruption, a question that northern Italy has never been asked before. What could this place become if the old order simply stopped? He reorganizes, he creates republics, he redistributes, he moves art back to Paris by the cartload. Some call this theft, others call it the spoils of a new world. Napoleon calls it necessary. The campaign lasts almost a year. By the end, the Austrians have signed a treaty. France controls northern Italy, and Napoleon has become the most famous soldier in Europe. He is 27 years old. In Paris, people read his bulletins in the newspapers. They memorize his victories. They say his name at dinner tables and in market squares. The government that once saved him from suspicion now watches him carefully. A general this popular is useful and dangerous at the same time. Napoleon knows this. He always knows this. He returns to Paris in December 1797, to crowds, to celebrations, to Joséphine. He stays for only a few months, because already there is a new plan, a larger plan, a plan that points not west, not north, but south, toward Egypt, toward the ancient world, toward something that even Napoleon cannot fully explain. But that is tomorrow's story. Sleep now. The Mediterranean is calm tonight.
1798. Napoleon looks at a map. Not a map of Europe, a map of the world. Britain is France's greatest enemy. Not on the battlefield, Britain is powerful at sea, almost untouchable there. But on land, Britain depends on something. Trade routes, supply lines, the path to India. Egypt. If France controls Egypt, it controls the route to India. It weakens Britain without a single battle in the English Channel. This is the logic. Clean, cold, elegant. Napoleon presents the plan to the government. They approve it. Partly because it makes sense. Partly because they want this famous general far from Paris. In May 1798, a French fleet sets sail from Toulon, 400 ships, 35,000 soldiers, and something unusual. Something no conquering army has brought before. Scientists, 160 of them, mathematicians, naturalists, artists, historians, engineers. Napoleon does not just want to occupy Egypt, he wants to understand it, to document it, to bring its knowledge back to the world. They land in Alexandria in July 1798. The heat is immediate, absolute, unlike anything these French soldiers have ever felt. The desert does not care about tactics, about supply lines, about brilliant plans. Men collapse from thirst, from heat, from exhaustion, from diseases they have no names for. And yet they march south toward Cairo through sand and silence and sun. At the Battle of the Pyramids, Napoleon faces the Mamluk cavalry, fearless riders, magnificent horsemen charging across the desert with swords raised. Napoleon forms his infantry into squares, solid, unbreakable, cannons at the corners. The Mamluks charge again and again, and each time the squares hold and the cannons speak. The battle lasts less than an hour. Cairo falls. Napoleon enters the city. He studies the mosques, he meets with local scholars. He tries to understand the culture he has entered with varying success. But while he is in Cairo, something goes wrong. Far to the north at sea, the British Admiral Horatio Nelson finds the French fleet anchored in Aboukir Bay and destroys it almost entirely. Napoleon's army is now stranded, no ships, no way home, cut off from France by the British Navy. He does not show panic, he never shows panic. He pushes north into Syria, trying to find another way forward, another angle, another solution. But at the walls of Acre, he stops. The city does not fall. Disease spreads through his army, supply lines stretch to breaking point. For the first time, Napoleon retreats. He returns to Egypt, wins one more battle at Aboukir, on land this time against an Ottoman force. But he knows Egypt is not the answer, not anymore. And then, news arrives from France. The government is collapsing. There is instability, there is fear, there is a vacuum. Napoleon reads the dispatches. He makes a decision that shocks his officers. He leaves quietly. With a small group, he slips away in the night, leaving his army behind under another commander. Some call this abandonment. Napoleon calls it reading the moment. The army needed a general. France needed something more. He sails back across the Mediterranean, through British patrols, through autumn storms, and he arrives in France in October 1799. To cheering crowds who do not yet know, he left an army behind who only know that he is back. And that when Napoleon comes back, things tend to change. Rest now. The sea is quiet tonight. The stars are out over the Mediterranean. Tomorrow, everything changes. October 1799. Napoleon is back in Paris. The city feels different from when he left. Tired, anxious, looking for something it cannot name. The government is called the Directory. 5 men sharing power, arguing constantly, trusting no one, trusted by no one. France is exhausted by 10 years of revolution, by the terror, by the executions, by the wars, by the changing of governments like changing of seasons. People want stability, they want order, they want someone who knows what they are doing. Napoleon knows what he is doing. He meets with conspirators, politicians who are also tired, who want the Directory gone, who need a general with a famous name and a loyal army to make it happen. They choose Napoleon. On the 9th of November 1799, the plan is set in motion. The date in the French revolutionary calendar is 18 Brumaire. This day will carry that name in the history books. Napoleon addresses the Council of 500, the legislative body. He expects them to simply accept what is happening. They do not. The council erupts, men shout, some rush toward him. Napoleon is pale, shaking. For one of the only times in his life, he loses his composure in public. His brother Lucien saves the moment. He calls in the soldiers. He tells them that assassins are threatening the general. The soldiers enter, the council scatters, the government falls. It is over before midnight. A new system is announced. The Consulate, 3 consuls to govern France. Napoleon is first consul, the other 2 are largely decorative. He is 30 years old and he is now the ruler of France. He moves quickly as he always does. He writes a new constitution. It is approved by referendum. 3 million votes in favor, 1,500 against. The numbers are almost certainly adjusted. But the sentiment is real. France wants this. France wants him. He reorganizes everything. The legal system, the tax system, the education system, the banking system, the roads, the canals, the hospitals. He creates the Bank of France. He creates the lycée system of secondary schools. He begins work on what will become the Napoleonic Code, a set of laws clear enough for any citizen to read and understand. Property rights, civil equality, religious tolerance, freedom from arbitrary arrest. These ideas spread across Europe in his wake, not always welcomed, not always gentle in arrival, but present, permanent, impossible to fully undo. He also makes peace temporarily, with Austria, with Britain, with the Church. He negotiates a concordat with the Pope, restoring Catholicism as the religion of France while keeping the Church under state control. Both sides believe they have won. Perhaps both sides are right. For a brief moment in 1802, there is peace across most of Europe. Napoleon walks through the Tuileries gardens in the early morning before the city wakes, before the meetings begin, before the weight of it all settles on his shoulders. Just a man, walking, thinking, planning. Always planning. He is first consul for life by 1802. One step from something larger. One step from a word he has not yet spoken aloud. Emperor. But that is tomorrow's story. Sleep now. Paris is quiet tonight. The revolution is over. Something new is beginning. "1884.
Paris, Notre-Dame Cathedral. The stone walls have stood for 6 centuries. Kings have been crowned here. Saints have been mourned here. The revolution tried to erase what this building meant and failed. Today it means something new. The Pope himself has come, Pius VII from Rome, across the Alps in winter, to crown a French emperor. The last time a pope crossed the Alps to crown a ruler was Charlemagne, 1,000 years ago. Napoleon knows this. He has always known this. History is not just something that happened. It is a language, and Napoleon speaks it fluently. The cathedral is full, generals in uniform, ministers in silk, Joséphine in white and gold. The people of Paris pressing against the doors to catch a glimpse. The ceremony begins long, elaborate, choreographed down to the last detail by Napoleon himself. And then, the moment arrives. The Pope reaches for the crown. Napoleon takes it from his hands and places it on his own head. The message is understood by everyone in the room. No one gave him this, no birthright, no divine inheritance, no permission from God or Pope or King. He took it as he has taken everything in his life, by force of will, by preparation, by being the man in the room most willing to reach out his hand. He then crowns Joséphine gently with both hands. Those who are watching closely say it is the most tender they have ever seen him. Napoleon the Emperor, Joséphine the Empress. Outside the cathedral, cannons fire, bells ring, the crowd roars. Inside, Napoleon sits very still for a moment. He has arrived. And yet, something in his eyes is already elsewhere, already thinking, already calculating what comes next, what must be secured, what still remains undone. An empire is not built in a cathedral. It is built on roads, on laws, on battles, on the loyalty of men who would follow you into the dark. Napoleon has all of these things for now. He reorganizes Europe from Paris. He places his brothers on the thrones of Holland, of Naples, of Westphalia, of Spain. Family. He trusts family, more than ministers, more than generals, sometimes more than himself. The Napoleonic Code spreads across the continent and the countries. France now controls, old feudal laws are replaced, serfdom is abolished, equality before the law becomes the standard. Not everyone welcomes this. Some see liberation, others see occupation. Both are correct. And Britain watches from across the channel, funding coalitions, keeping the pressure on, never quite defeated, never quite giving up. Napoleon stares at the English Channel and knows it is the one border he cannot simply cross. He builds a fleet. He trains an army on the coast of Toulon, 150,000 men, waiting for the right moment, waiting for a window in Britain's naval dominance. The window never opens, but while he waits, another threat emerges to the east. Austria and Russia are moving, a new coalition, a new threat. Napoleon turns away from the channel. He turns east. In the greatest campaign of his life, is about to begin. Sleep now. The empire is quiet tonight. The flags are still. The cannons are cold. Tomorrow, the army marches.
December 1805, Moravia, in the heart of Europe. What is today the Czech Republic? The French army has marched over 1,000 kilometers in less than 2 months, from the coast of France to the plains of Central Europe, on foot in autumn rain, carrying everything they need on their backs. Napoleon has done what no one believed possible. He has moved faster than the enemy could plan for, faster than letters could carry news of his position, faster than fear could organize a response. He has already taken Ulm, an entire Austrian army, surrendered without a major battle. 30,000 men captured in a maneuver so precise it seemed impossible until it was done. Vienna has fallen, the Austrian capital, taken quietly without burning, without destruction. But the war is not over. The Russian army has arrived under Tsar Alexander I, young, proud, certain of victory. The Austrian emperor is also present, Francis II, humiliated, but still fighting. Together their forces outnumber Napoleon's 85,000 men against his 72,000. They believe the numbers are enough. Napoleon lets them believe it. He does something that seems like weakness. He pulls back his right flank. He thins the line on the southern part of the battlefield. He makes it look as if his army is vulnerable there. The Allied commanders see this, and they do exactly what Napoleon wants them to do. They pour their forces toward that weakened right flank, committing their reserves, pulling men away from the center. From the high ground, at the Pratzen Heights, Napoleon waits. He's standing on a hill in the cold morning air, watching. The sun rises behind him. It burns through the morning fog at exactly the right moment. This moment will be remembered, the son of Austerlitz, the moment the fog lifted and Napoleon saw exactly what he needed to see. He turns to his marshals, gentlemen, one sharp blow, and the war is over. The French center drives straight up the Pratzen Heights into the gap the Allies have left open. The Allied army is cut in two. The right flank is now separated, fighting hard in the south, but cut off, surrounded, slowly broken apart. Some Allied soldiers try to retreat across the frozen lakes to the south. Napoleon orders his artillery to fire at the ice. The ice breaks. By late afternoon, it is over. 36,000 Allied soldiers are killed or captured. The French lose 9,000. Austerlitz. It will be studied in military academies for 200 years. The perfect battle, deception, timing, concentration of force. At exactly the right point. At exactly the right moment. Napoleon walks the battlefield as the sun goes down. Among the wounded, among the dead, French and Russian and Austrian, lying side by side in the cold December ground. He is quiet,
He always goes quiet after battles. The noise inside him stills. A peace treaty is signed. Days later, Austria is diminished. Russia withdraws. The third coalition is broken. Napoleon is at the peak of his power, master of Europe, unchallenged, undefeated in the open field. He writes to Joséphine that night, a short letter. I have beaten them all. I am well. I am tired. He sleeps for 12 hours, the first real sleep in weeks. You should do the same. Rest now. The battle is won. The fields are quiet. The stars are out over Moravia. Tomorrow, the empire continues.
Once 1806, Napoleon stands at the height of his power. Austria is defeated. Prussia is next. At the twin battles of Jena and Austerlitz, the Prussian army is destroyed in a single day. Frederick the Great's army, the finest in Europe, just decades before, broken, scattered in one October afternoon. Napoleon rides into Berlin through the Brandenburg Gate. The city is silent. The people watch from behind windows. He visits the tomb of Frederick the Great. He stands there for a long moment, hat in hand. Gentlemen, if he was still alive, we would not be standing here. He means it as respect. It sounds like it too. But Britain, always Britain. At sea, Admiral Nelson has already defeated the French and Spanish fleets at Trafalgar. 1 year before Austerlitz, Nelson died in that battle. But Britain won it completely. Napoleon cannot cross the Channel. He cannot defeat Britain with cannon and infantry. The sea will not allow it. And so, he thinks differently. If he cannot defeat Britain with armies, perhaps he can defeat it with commerce. He issues the Berlin Decree, November 1806. The Continental System. The idea is this: every country in Europe under French influence will stop trading with Britain. No British goods, no British ships in European ports. Britain's economy depends on trade. Cut the trade, starve the economy, force Britain to the table. The logic is sound, the execution is nearly impossible. Europe's coastline is thousands of kilometers long. Smugglers are everywhere. British goods are popular. People want them. Merchants need them. Portugal refuses to join the system. Napoleon invades Portugal, marches his army through Spain to get there. Spain watches French troops march across its territory and grows uneasy. The Spanish royal family is in chaos, fighting amongst themselves. Napoleon sees an opportunity. He summons the Spanish royals to a meeting in Bayonne and does not let them leave until they have signed away their throne. He places his brother Joseph on the throne of Spain. Spain erupts. Not the army, not the government, the people. Guerrilla war, a word that enters the modern vocabulary in these years from the Spanish Little War. Farmers with hunting rifles, priests with hidden weapons, women passing messages through market crowds, an entire nation that will not accept what has happened. French soldiers begin disappearing in ones and twos on lonely roads and village squares at night. Napoleon sends his best marshals to Spain, and then more, and then more. Spain becomes a wound that does not close, a drain on men and money and attention. Britain sends an army under a general named Arthur Wellesley, who will later be known as the Duke of Wellington. The Peninsular War begins, and it will bleed France for 6 years. Napoleon does not yet know how deep this wound will go. He is already looking east at Russia, which is quietly beginning to trade with Britain again, ignoring the Continental System. Every solution creates a new problem. Every victory reveals a new vulnerability. This is the nature of empire. Napoleon walks the halls of the Tuileries late at night, alone. The maps spread out before him. Spain to the west, Russia to the east, Britain always just across the water. He is still thinking, still calculating, still certain that there is an answer, if he can only find it. Sleep now. The maps will still be there. In the morning, the problems will still be there. But tonight, let them rest. Let yourself rest too.
There is something Napoleon cannot control. Not an army, not a coalition, not a coastline full of smugglers. An heir. Joséphine has not given him a child. Years of marriage, years of letters written from battlefields, years of return and reunion, and love that is complicated and real and imperfect. But no child. Napoleon has a son from another woman, a proof that the problem is not his. An empire needs a successor. A dynasty needs a child without one. Everything Napoleon has built dies with him. He has known this for some time. He has avoided it. The way a man avoids a conversation he knows will change everything. In November 1809, he tells Joséphine. They are alone in the private apartments of the Tuileries. The fire is lit. The city is quiet outside. He tells her they must divorce. Joséphine collapses. She weeps, not quietly, not with dignity, with the full weight of what is being taken from her. Napoleon weeps too. Those who are outside the door hear both of them. This is not a political decision made without feeling. This is a man tearing something from himself because he believes he has no other choice. The divorce is made official in December 1809. Joséphine keeps her title, her homes, her income, her dignity in public. Napoleon keeps the emptiness she leaves behind. He remarries quickly, as he does everything. Marie-Louise of Austria, 18 years old, daughter of the emperor. Napoleon defeated at Austerlitz. The irony is not lost on anyone. Yesterday's enemy becomes tomorrow's family. Marie-Louise is not Joséphine. She is young, dutiful, somewhat afraid of him at first. Napoleon is patient with her, more patient than people expect. In 1811,
She gives birth to a son. Napoleon Francois Joseph, King of Rome, from the moment of his birth. Napoleon receives the news in the middle of the night. He is told it is a boy. He stands very still for a long moment. Then he goes to see his son. He stands over the cradle, this small, impossibly small human being who carries everything Napoleon has fought for, everything he has built, everything he hopes will outlast him. He does not speak for a long time. Paris celebrates for 3 days, cannons fire, bells ring, wine flows in the streets. Napoleon holds his son, and is, for perhaps the only time in his adult life, completely still. Not planning, not calculating, not thinking about Spain or Russia or Britain. Just a father, holding his child in the quiet of a Paris night. It is the stillest he will ever be, because the storm is already gathering to the east, where Russia waits, where the Continental System is failing, where Tsar Alexander has made his decision, and Napoleon will have to make his. But not tonight. Tonight, there is only this small sleeping face, this tiny hand, this new beginning. Sleep now, as the King of Rome sleeps quietly, without knowing what the world expects of him. That is a gift. Treasure it.
(1812). The largest army ever assembled in Europe stands on the Russian border. 600,000 men, French, Polish, German, Italian, Dutch, Austrian, from every corner of Napoleon's empire. La Grande Armée, the Great Army, at its peak, its absolute peak. Napoleon stands before it on the banks of the Niemen River, the border between his empire and Russia. He has tried diplomacy, he has sent letters, he has waited. Tsar Alexander has stopped enforcing the Continental System. British goods are flowing into Russia again. The alliance is broken in everything but name. Napoleon believes one decisive battle will end this, as it ended things before, as Austerlitz ended things, as Jena ended things. One battle. Alexander will negotiate and it will be over. In June 1812, the army crosses the river. Russia does not come to meet them. The Russian army retreats into the vastness, into the distance, drawing the French forward further from their supply lines, further from home, further into a country that seems to have no end. The summer is brutal, not with fighting, with heat, with dust, with roads that are not roads, with rivers to cross, with horses dying by the thousands, with men falling, not to bullets, but to dysentery, to exhaustion, to the simple, merciless distance. Napoleon pushes forward, always forward, waiting for the battle that will decide everything. At Smolensk, the Russians fight briefly, then burn the city and retreat again. At Borodino, they finally stand. September the 7th, 1812. The bloodiest single day of the Napoleonic Wars. 70,000 casualties in one day, French and Russian alike, in a battle that solves nothing. The Russians retreat again, bloodied but not broken, not surrendering. Napoleon enters Moscow 2 weeks later. The city is empty. The Russians have left, taking everything of value, everything that could feed an army, everything that could warm a man through winter. And then, the fires start. The Russians burn their own city rather than let Napoleon use it.
Napoleon watches from the Kremlin as Moscow burns. For days it burns, 3/4 of the city gone. He waits for Alexander to send a messenger to negotiate, to accept the reality of French occupation. No messenger comes. He waits 5 weeks in the ruins of a burning city, as September becomes October, as the nights grow colder, as the first snow begins to fall. No messenger. Napoleon makes the decision he has been avoiding: retreat. The army turns west, back the way it came. 600 kilometers to the border, through a land they have already stripped bare, through roads they have already emptied. And then winter arrives, not gradually all at once. Temperatures drop to 20 below, to 30 below. Men freeze on the road in their sleep mid-step. Horses collapse, supplies are abandoned. Men drop their weapons because they are too cold to hold them. The Cossacks follow the retreating column, picking off stragglers, attacking the flanks, always there, always at the edges. At the Berezina River, the bridges are down. The army crosses under fire on hastily built pontoons in freezing water. Men fall in, men drown, men are crushed in the panic. Napoleon crosses, he is there among them, watching, unable to stop what is happening. For the first time in his life, he faces something that cannot be outthought, cannot be outmaneuvered, cannot be solved with a better plan or a faster march. Russia is simply too large, too cold, too willing to lose in order to win. By December, what remains of the Grand Armée crosses back over the Niemen River. 100,000 men, perhaps fewer of the 600,000 who crossed in June. Napoleon leaves them again, he leaves his army. He rides ahead to Paris to deal with a coup attempt, to rebuild, to plan. The soldiers who remain do not condemn him for this, not all of them. Some do, some understand. The war is not over, he will rebuild, he will fight again. But something has changed. Europe has seen that he can be beaten, not in the field, not by a better general, by distance, by winter, by a country that chose suffering over surrender. The myth of invincibility is cracked, and cracks have a way of spreading. Sleep now, you are warm, you are safe, you are not on a frozen road in Russia in December. Remember that as you close your eyes. Tomorrow, Europe begins to fight back.
May 1814. The island of Elba, in the Tyrrhenian Sea between Corsica and the Italian coast. It is small, 20 kilometers long, 12 kilometers wide. Iron mines, vineyards, fishing boats in quiet harbors. Napoleon arrives by ship. The island's population comes to the shore to watch, some cheer. Some are simply curious. What does a fallen emperor look like? He looks tired, smaller than expected, quieter. He is given the island as his sovereign territory, 1,000 soldiers of the old guard who volunteered to follow him. A small income, a modest court. He throws himself into governing Elba, the way he threw himself into governing France. He reorganizes the roads, improves the iron mines, modernizes the agriculture, reviews the island's defenses, holds court, issues decrees. The local people are somewhat astonished. They expected a broken man. They got Napoleon. But at night, when the work is done, and the island is quiet, and the Mediterranean moves softly against the rocks below his window, he sits and thinks. News arrives from France. The restored king, Louise XVIII, is unpopular. The soldiers of France miss their emperor. The reforms of the revolution are being quietly undone. The old aristocracy is returning, with its old attitudes, its old entitlements. Napoleon listens, and he begins to think about what he always thinks about. What comes next? In late February 1815, he makes a decision that shocks Europe. He leaves Elba with 1,000 soldiers, 7 small ships, no permission.
No announcement, no negotiation. He simply leaves. He lands in the south of France on the 1st of March 1815 near Cannes on a beach called Golfe Juan. The king sends troops to stop him, a regiment under a royalist commander, with orders to arrest him or shoot him if necessary. Napoleon walks toward them alone, ahead of his men, in his grey coat, his hat, hands behind his back. He stops within musket range and calls out, "Soldiers of the 5th Regiment, do you recognize me?" Silence. If there is one among you who wishes to shoot his emperor, he may do so now. No one fires. A murmur moves through the regiment, then a sound growing, unstoppable. Vive l'Empereur. The soldiers break ranks, they run to him, not to arrest him, to join him. Their commander watches as his regiment simply walks away to follow Napoleon. It happens again and again as he moves north through Grenoble, through Lyon, town after town, regiment after regiment. The king flees Paris before Napoleon arrives. On the 20th of March 1815, Napoleon enters the Tuileries, carried on the shoulders of cheering soldiers. Without firing a single shot, he has retaken France. Europe is stunned. And then Europe begins to mobilize, every major power at once, 1 million soldiers to be gathered against him. Napoleon has perhaps 3 months before they are ready. 3 months to win the war before it becomes unwinnable. He works through the nights rebuilding the army, writing letters, reviewing maps, eating at his desk, sleeping in his chair. He is 45 years old, heavier than before, not as fast on horseback, sometimes ill at the worst moments. But his mind is still Napoleon's. He decides to strike first into Belgium, before the Allied armies can fully assemble, before Wellington and Blücher can combine their forces. One more battle, one decisive blow, and perhaps Europe will negotiate. He rides north with the old guard, with cavalry and cannon and hope. The place he is riding toward is a small village in Belgium, near a farm called Hougomont, near a ridge called Mont Saint-Jean, near a place called Waterloo. Sleep now, the army is moving. The roads are quiet in the June night. The fields are dark and still. Tomorrow, everything is decided.
June the 18th, 1815. Belgium. It has been raining for days. The fields are soft, the roads are mud. Moving artillery through this ground takes twice as long as it should. Napoleon waits for the ground to dry. He starts the battle late, almost noon, hours later than planned. Those hours will matter. Wellington's army holds the ridge of Mont Saint-Jean, British, Dutch, Belgian. 90,000 men spread along the high ground. To the east, the Prussian army, under Blücher, is moving slowly, but moving toward the battlefield. Napoleon needs to defeat Wellington before Blücher arrives. He begins with artillery, 80 cannon firing at the ridge. The ground is still soft. The shells sink before they explode. The effect is less than it should be. Wellington's men lie down behind the ridge, out of sight, waiting. The French infantry advances up the slope into musket fire.
from men they cannot see until they crest the ridge, and it is already too late. Again and again, the attacks are repulsed. At the farm of Hougoumont, fighting begins in the morning and does not stop all day. A small stone farmhouse held by a few hundred British guards. Napoleon sends thousands to take it. They never do. Marshal Ney leads the cavalry charges. Thousands of horsemen, the finest cavalry in Europe, thundering up the slope in waves. Wellington forms his infantry into squares, as Napoleon taught the world to do at the pyramids, as Napoleon himself designed the tactic. The cavalry breaks against the squares, again and again, horses and men falling on the ridge in the afternoon sun. Napoleon watches from a hill to the south. He is not well today. His stomach, his fatigue, he gives orders, but he is not there. The way he was at Austerlitz, not as sharp, not as present. And then, to the east, the first Prussian troops appear on the horizon. Blucher has arrived. Napoleon sends troops to hold them back, but they keep coming, more and more, thousands, then tens of thousands. He has one option left, one final push, the Imperial Guard, his best soldiers, never defeated, never broken. He has saved them all day for this moment. Late afternoon, Napoleon sends the guard up the ridge. Wellington has anticipated this. He has hidden troops on the reverse slope, waiting. The guard crests the ridge and is met by a wall of muskets at point-blank range. They stagger. They try to form. They are hit again. The Imperial Guard begins to retreat. It has never happened before. Every soldier on the battlefield sees it. The Guard recule. The Guard is retreating. 4 words that end an empire. The French army does not retreat, it breaks. It runs, 20,000 men suddenly moving south in panic, dropping weapons, abandoning cannon, running in the dusk. The Prussians pursue through the night. There is no regrouping, no rallying point, no second chance. Napoleon swept along in retreat, his horse moving through the chaos of his dissolving army. He reaches Paris. He considers options. America, another army, another campaign. His advisors tell him it is over. His brother tells him it is over. The Parliament tells him it is over. On the 22nd of June, 1815, Napoleon abdicates for the second time. He goes to the coast. He hopes to sail to America, to start again, in a new world, with a new name perhaps, just a man, without an empire. The British Navy is waiting. He surrenders to the captain of HMS Bellefonte, a British warship. He steps aboard and looks back at the coast of France. No one records what expression was on his face. The ship sails west. Sleep now. The battlefield is quiet. The guns are cold. The horses are still. The ridge at Mont Saint Jean is empty in the summer night. The stars are out over Belgium, over France, over the Atlantic, where a ship carries the lost emperor away from everything he built. Rest. You have earned it.
Saint Helena. Find it on a map, and you will understand why they chose it. A a volcanic island in the South Atlantic Ocean, 1,900 kilometers from the coast of Africa, 2,800 kilometers from the coast of South America. The most remote inhabited island on Earth. No escape, no rescue, no return. Napoleon arrives in October 1815. After 2 months at sea, he is 46 years old. The island is small, 12 kilometers long, 6 kilometers wide, green and steep. Often wrapped in cloud, the wind never stops. He is given a house, longwood, on a plateau near the center of the island, damp, cold at night. Surrounded by British soldiers and British cannon and British ships in the harbor below. He is never alone. A British officer must see him, at least twice a day, to confirm he is still there, still present, has not somehow escaped. Napoleon finds this humiliating, he says so, often, to anyone who will listen. And so he talks. He has brought with him a small court, loyal followers who chose to come, who left France and family and comfort to spend their years on a rock in the South Atlantic. He dictates to them for hours every day his memoirs, his version of events, his account of the wars, the battles, the decisions, the betrayals. He rewrites himself carefully, deliberately. He was always the defender of the revolution, the protector of its ideals, not a conqueror, a liberator, not an emperor by ambition, an emperor by necessity. The wars were forced on him by kings who feared what France represented by Britain, which could never accept a strong continent. Whether this is true or half true or mostly invention is a question historians still debate. But as a story, it is powerful, and Napoleon has always understood the power of stories. He walks when the weather allows, which is not always. The island is unpredictable, fog in the morning, rain in the afternoon, wind always. He gardens, he reads, he plays chess, he takes long baths, he eats too much and moves too little, and grows heavier as the years pass. He thinks about his son, the King of Rome, who is now in Vienna, being raised by the Austrian court, being made into an Austrian archduke, being unmade into Napoleon's son. He sends him letters. They may not arrive. He sends them anyway. He thinks about Joséphine, who died in 1814, while he was on Elba, who died before he could ever see her again. He says once that she was the only woman he truly loved. The years pass, 18, 16, 18, 17, 18, 19, 18, 20. He is not well, his stomach, pain that comes and goes and then comes more. He loses weight, then gains it. His skin grows pale in the island light. He asks for news of France, of Europe, of his son. The papers arrive, weeks late, after long sea voyages. He reads everything, every word. He's still paying attention, still watching, still thinking. Even here, even now, even on this rock in the South Atlantic with no army and no empire and nowhere to go. Napoleon is still Napoleon. Sleep now. The Atlantic is wide tonight. The stars are different in this part of the world, brighter, closer somehow. The island is quiet. The wind has dropped for once. The
There is only the sound of the sea, far below, constant, patient, indifferent to emperors and empires, and everything that rises and falls on the surface of the world. Rest.
To 1821, Saint Helena. Napoleon is 51 years old. He looks older. The island has taken something from him, not his mind. His mind is still sharp, still restless, still filing away. Observations and conclusions and arguments he will never deliver to anyone who matters. But his body is failing. The stomach pain is constant now. He cannot eat without discomfort. He cannot sleep without waking. He spends long hours lying down in the damp rooms of Longwood, listening to the wind and dictating when he has the strength. His doctors disagree about what is wrong. They disagree about treatment. They disagree about almost everything. Napoleon watches them with the same eyes he once used to watch his generals, assessing, categorizing, finding them wanting. He dictates his will. It is a long document, precise, detailed, Napoleon to the end. He leaves money to old soldiers, to servants, to people who were loyal in small ways. He never forgot. He leaves instructions for his funeral. He wishes to be buried on the banks of the Seine among the people of France. He knows this will not happen. Not yet. Not while the kings of Europe are alive and afraid of what his grave might mean. But someday, he writes to his son a final letter full of advice, full of love, expressed in the only way. Napoleon knows how to express it, through instruction, through preparation, through telling a young man everything he will need to know for a world his father will not be there to help him navigate. My son should not think of avenging my death. He should profit from it. In late April 1821, he cannot rise from bed. His companions take turns sitting with him, reading to him, talking softly about France, about the old campaigns, about Austerlitz, about the crossing of the Alps, about the early days when everything was still possible and the world was still opening like a door. He drifts in and out, sometimes lucid, sometimes somewhere else, somewhere further back. On the 3rd of May, he receives last rites from a priest who has been on the island for some time. Napoleon listens. He does not argue. He does not debate theology as he sometimes has in better years. He simply listens. On the 4th of May, he speaks for what will be almost the last time. He says several things. Some are recorded clearly, some are disputed, some may have been added later by people who wanted a more poetic ending. Among the words recorded, France, Army, Joséphine. 3 words in that order, or perhaps in another order. The witnesses disagreed even as they wrote it down. On the 5th of May 1821, 17 minutes to 6 in the evening, Napoleon Bonaparte dies. He is 51 years old. The cause, debated for 2 centuries, stomach cancer, is the most accepted answer. Some have proposed arsenic poisoning, slow, deliberate in the food or the wallpaper of Longwood. The debate continues. The island is silent in the hours after.
His companions sit with him through the night, not speaking much, just present. The way people sit with someone they cannot believe is gone. He's buried on the island in a quiet valley, under 3 weeping willows near a spring he liked to drink from on his walks. The British governor of the island insists the gravestone reads simply, nothing, no name, no title, no date. The French will not accept any name but Napoleon. The British will not accept the title emperor. And so the stone is left blank. A blank stone in a valley on an island in the South Atlantic, over a man whose name needed no introduction in this lifetime and needs none still. Sleep now. The valley is quiet. The willows move in the island wind. The spring runs clear over the stones. The Atlantic is vast and dark and full of stars tonight. Rest. Rest.
He is gone. But the world he left behind is not the world he found. Let us sit with that for a moment. When Napoleon was born in 1769, Europe was a continent of kings and serfs, of inherited power and inherited poverty, of laws that existed to protect the nobility from the people and the church from both. When he died in 1821, something had shifted, permanently, irreversibly. The Napoleonic Code. It still exists in France, in Belgium, in Luxembourg, in Quebec, in Louisiana, in parts of Latin America, in countries that were never part of his empire, but looked at what he built and chose to keep it. Equality before the law, property rights for ordinary citizens, freedom of religion, abolition of feudal privilege, a legal system written in plain language that any person could read. These things did not begin with Napoleon. The revolution began them, but Napoleon made them portable, made them exportable, carried them across Europe in his saddlebags. The metric system standardized across Europe in his wake. The lycée, the French system of secondary education, still functioning, still producing students 200 years later. The Bank of France, the Conseil d'État, the prefectural system that still governs French regional administration today. The roads, the bridges, the canals built or planned in his years of power, some still in use. He reorganized Egypt, sparked a wave of European fascination with the ancient world. The Rosetta Stone was found by his scientists. The discipline of Egyptology traces its roots to that campaign. He accelerated the end of the Holy Roman Empire, a structure that had existed in various forms for 1,000 years gone. In his wake, he made nationalism a force in Europe, not deliberately as a consequence. The peoples he conquered wanted their own states, their own laws, their own languages on official documents. Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain, all moved closer to modern nationhood in reaction to Napoleon. He remade the map of Europe. Boundaries he drew or erased echoed for a century. Some echo still. And then there is the other side. The wars. 3 to 5 million dead, military and civilian. Over 20 years of nearly continuous conflict. Families across the continent who lost sons, fathers, brothers. Haiti,
where Napoleon sent an army to reimpose slavery after the revolution there, where hundreds of thousands suffered and died before the Haitian people won their freedom, the only successful slave revolution in history, achieved in part against Napoleon. Spain, where the guerrilla war killed hundreds of thousands of Spanish civilians, where French soldiers committed atrocities documented in paint by Francisco Goya, images that still disturb because they were meant to. Russia, where 600,000 men marched east and fewer than 100,000 returned. Russians and French and Germans and Poles frozen in the fields between Moscow and the Niemen River. These things are also his legacy. History does not offer us clean heroes or clean villains. Napoleon was a man of extraordinary gifts and ordinary cruelties, a child of the revolution who became a king, a liberator who became a conqueror, a man who genuinely believed in equality before the law, and yet placed his brothers on stolen thrones. He contains contradictions, the way most great forces do. In 1840, 19 years after his death on Saint Helena, the French government brings his body home. The coffin is carried through the streets of Paris on a winter day. 300,000 people line the route in silence, in snow. Old soldiers of the guard weep openly as the procession passes men in their 70s, leaning on canes who were boys when they followed him across the Alps, across Egypt, across Europe. He's placed in lesson valleys in Paris beneath a dome of gold in a tomb of red porphyry, on a base of green granite surrounded by the names of his victories: Rivoli, Pyramides, Marengo, Austerlitz, Iena, Frieden, Wahlgren, La Moscova. People still go there, every day, from every country in the world. They stand at the edge of the crypt and look down at the tomb. Some are moved, some are horrified, some are simply trying to understand how one person could have mattered so much. There is no simple answer. There rarely is for lives of that scale. What we can say is this: he was born on a small island to a family of minor nobility, with no great advantages in a world that was about to explode. And he became the axis around which that explosion turned.
For good and for ill and for everything in between. The boy from Corsica who learned that a man underestimated has a quiet advantage, who carried that lesson all the way to the top of the world and back down again, to a blank stone in a valley on a remote island in the South Atlantic. Sleep now. The story is complete. Napoleon Bonaparte, 1769 to 1821. He was here. He changed things. He is gone. And the world he changed is still turning. Rest well.